Unfairness, truth and justice, really important to me, and that's fairness in everything I do. When we have issues within the organisation, I like it to be done so that it's clearly and objectively fair. I like to have fair dealings with people outside the organisation.
The lawyer I'm interviewing today is the Managing Director and the Global General Counsel of the Corporate and Investment Banking at Barclays. She's on the Investment Bank's Executive Committee, sits on its Global Diversity Committee, is a member of its Global Partnership Committee, and is an executive sponsor of its Women's Initiatives Network in Europe, the Middle East and Africa. Her experience in the legal profession spans over 25 years. She trained at the city firm Stevenson Harwood, rising to partner in its corporate finance department between 1992 and 2000, during which time she spent 2 years on secondment as a senior executive of the UK Takeover Panel. In 2000, she joined the US firm Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher as a partner before joining Barclays Group as a Deputy General Counsel in 2006. In 2008, she became the General Counsel for the Barclays Group Global Retail and Commercial Banking, with responsibility for the legal and compliance functions across the global retail and commercial banking. In 2010, she took on the current role as the Global General Counsel of the Corporate and Investment Banking at Barclays, covering Europe, Middle East, Africa, the Americas and Asia Pacific. She was named in the Financial News 100 Most Influential Women's list. She's also a panel member of the UK Women in Law Advisory Board and sits as a panel member of the UK Takeover Panel as a representative of the British Bankers Association. She's an honorary fellow of the Society for Advanced Legal Studies and on the advisory board of the Linklaters Law and Business School. Closer to my heart, however, she's on the BLD Foundation Advisory Board. The lawyer I'm interviewing today is, of course, Judith Shepherd. Tell us more about your role as a Global General Counsel at Barclays Corporate and Investment Banking.
Well, as General Counsel, I'm responsible for running legal risk across the firm, and that takes sort of two main directions. One is we are part of the client service, so negotiating contracts with the clients and dealing with client inquiries and issues that rise on those contracts, but also making sure that the business are anticipating and dealing with all the other sorts of legal risks that could emerge during their work, and that's employment issues, data protection issues, sort of every other aspect of legal risk. I also sit on the Senior Management Committee, so in that I'm contributing both my legal background and knowledge, but also just general business contribution to the issues that face the organisation.
What's a typical day like?
If only there was one. There are various things that are fixed in the diary. There are various sort of committee meetings, management meetings, which regularly appear. There are also, when projects are underway, then I'll get updates on the projects. And then, of course, there are the issues that just blaze up one day and blow out an entire morning when you thought you were going to do something else. Also spend a lot of time with the people. I travel to the three main regions, the Americas, Europe and Asia, and I will meet with business people and the teams. And in all the time I'm trying to get the right balance between the legal team supporting the business, but also making sure that the business are aware of all their risks and responsibilities.
What was your first ever job?
First ever job was when I was about 16 and I worked as a waitress in Betty's Cafe in York.
Oh, excellent.
I then, during the holidays, whilst I was in full-time education, I worked in various hotels, restaurants, so chambermaid, washed up, waitress. It was fantastic. I met a lot of really interesting people and learnt a lot. And so I always quite like it now when I go and, my job, I travel a lot, I spend a lot of time in hotels, but I know how difficult it is to provide that service.
Oh, good, excellent. So
I appreciate it.
Why from hotels to law? So why did you choose a career in law in that case?
The career in law, well, that I came at to rather accidentally. I had not thought about law at all. I did English as a degree, but my boyfriend at the time at university wanted to be a lawyer, and he was doing legal placements, so I thought, well, I'll have a go at one of those. And actually I really liked it. So I think it's very important that people try a lot of different things before they make their career choices. No one in my family was a lawyer. I had no experience as a lawyer, so I had no idea what it was like, and so I discounted it in my head. And yet, having that experience meant that that was then an option open to me. So I was really encouraging people to try a lot of things.
If you were to choose another profession other than law, what would it be and why?
Well, I'll go back to the first thing I ever intended to do, which is I always thought I was going to be a teacher. I've always thought of education as a very liberating and empowering thing. And I think whatever you do with it, it's always the most valuable thing you can give a human being is to be well educated. And so that's what I would have done.
Just rewinding back, thinking back, what would you say was the worst and the best career advice you've ever received?
Well, let's start with the best. The best is do what you enjoy. Because I think that if you really enjoy what you're doing, then your enthusiasm comes across, your energy levels are high, your drive is high, and so you will succeed. You can only do something you don't like very much for a short period of time before it becomes obvious. So I think go with your instincts, go with what you enjoy and pursue it. The worst career advice I ever got was shortly after I joined my first law firm, one of the senior partners said to me, well, you have to understand that women make good assistants, but they don't make good partners. Now, of course, being the perverse creature I was, that made me utterly determined to prove him wrong. And I'm glad to say that there are lots and lots of women, very successful women around the city that have also proved him wrong.
What was the best advice you would give others?
If you can't laugh, it's gone too far. It's really important to be able to keep a sense of humour and a sense of perspective. Like lots of jobs, being a lawyer can be very, very stressful. And it's always important that you can therefore take a step back. If something's gone wrong, see the funny side of it, and then work out how to fix it. But I think having a strong sense of humour just helps you keep a balanced approach and stops things getting out of hand.
What would you say you're happiest, most passionate about?
Most passionate about developing my team. I absolutely love my team. I love the possibilities of what we can do. I want us to be a high quality support to the business, to be highly respected by the business, to be an important part of the organisation. I like the developing them, helping them to fulfil their potential. I also like the fact that now actually I can make a difference. We can do more on the diversity front, keeping doors open, giving people opportunities. The work we do with BLD in the work placements, the careers advice, the mentoring, my teams benefit enormously from that, and I really enjoy being able to offer that sort of facility.
What about your dislikes?
Well, I suppose not surprisingly for a lawyer, I hate unfairness. Truth and justice, really important to me. And that's fairness in everything I do. When, we have issues within the organisation, I like it to be done so that it's clearly and objectively fair. I like to have fair dealings with people outside the organisation. And it links in with the diversity. I loathe the fact that people don't have equal opportunities. So I would do things to correct that unfairness and to make a difference.
Good. What about the person you most admire? Dead or alive, and why? Why is that?
I really struggled with this one. I thought that as an English literature student, I ought to admire an author, and I do admire many authors. I think particularly perhaps the Bronte sisters. I mean, they just decreed that they were not going to get stuck in a parsonage up in Keighley. They were going to do things, and at the time, women weren't allowed to write books. So they published it under male names. And I quite sort of like that sort of perversity and rebellion. But actually, the people that I most admire are probably what are more the local unsung heroes. In my work for Women of the Year and the Barclay Citizenship Awards, we hear all these tales of people who do the most amazing things in addition to their day job. And a woman in Africa who set up an orphanage for AIDS orphans, and just on top of her job, and she fundraised and she beat local bureaucracy, and she made such a difference to these children. I've got a colleague out in the States who works for an education establishment in New York and does Saturday tutoring, and he takes his son along, so his son has to do the tutoring as well. And I just really like this idea of people looking around and saying, this isn't right, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to do something.
As you probably know, the role of the in-house lawyers has really dramatically changed, and it's evolved greatly. So how do you see that role in the future developing?
You're absolutely right. It has changed enormously. I think there was a time when in-house lawyers were regarded more as postboxes between the business and the outside law firm, and that has definitely changed. There are far more lawyers in-house now. I've got a team of 500 lawyers. They are doing more than being just a postbox. So it's the in-house lawyers get the opportunity to work very closely with the business, often getting involved in ideas at a very embryonic stage. Far earlier than you would ever get involved as an outside lawyer. And you're seen very much more as a partner in addressing all of the various issues that need to be dealt with. So I think very interesting work opportunities, very interesting career opportunities. Now there are so many more. You can see that we're about the size of a small law, or actually a medium-sized law firm. So there are lots of opportunities for career change within that, and also across to the business if they want to.
What are you doing, practical steps you're taking to ensure that those external law firms do more than pay service to diversity?
It's a very important point, and I do feel that responsibility. Obviously, it's an important part of our sourcing strategy, not just for legal services, but right across the board. So we do test all of our suppliers on these issues. But in addition, I think if you're talking about practical steps, is we do get our law firms involved in some of our initiatives, like some of the work we do with BLD. We will talk to, persuade, encourage law firms to come. I think one event that we had for Today's Children, Tomorrow's Lawyers, we got people from private practice and to combine with our in-house team to talk about the different sorts of opportunities available. We've done debate with some of our external providers and some other city institutions with what else could we do within our communities. I have regular relationship meetings with all of our major suppliers, and it is one of the things that we cover. What can we do, and also trying to understand what they're doing, because if there's anything that we can then do together. But I think there are all sorts of initiatives actually at the moment which should keep more doors open. And that's about actually working with the schools with a broader spread of opportunities, so showing them more things that could be available. And some of our other suppliers may well be able to help with that.
Okay. What do you consider, though, on the diversity front as well, are the greatest challenges or issues facing us today?
Yes. I think it's keeping the doors open. One of the unintended consequences of the professionalisation of the recruitment process, so having it much more on a scorecard basis, much more consistency, much more consistent screening of candidates, that's great, because in some ways you could say objectively that's more fair, but on the other hand, what it makes it very difficult is for people who don't come through the standard line, very difficult for them to break through. So very difficult for people from different backgrounds to break through. And that, I think, is a big problem. So I think we've got to look at ways in which we can keep doors open and keep opportunities available. And there are various ways in which we're trying to do that at Barclays. The apprentice scheme that we're running, and trying to make sure that we can gather people at different levels of qualification, so it's not just one standard homogenous approach.
Absolutely. Judith, what would you consider to be your professional high point, or in fact points?
But there were sort of many stages along the way. I mean, obviously getting my first job, qualifying, first time I had a client matter to deal with on my own. I remember being enormously apprehensive about it, but actually the sheer joy of getting through it and it all working. Becoming a partner, getting the job here. So lots of lovely moments along the way.
I mean, you've achieved so much. I mean, you've gone through so many things. Any more professional, achievement you're looking for?
There's always lots to do. There's always lots to do. It is one of the great things about the legal qualification, is once you have the qualification, there's just a huge range of opportunities. And you can do, like I have done, do different things through your career. So there's endless challenges and interest to be had, just with that one basic qualification. So it's a great thing to do.
Do you have any professional regrets?
No, I don't think. I mean, there are definitely times when I was on a steep learning curve. There are definitely times when I made mistakes, and I'm endlessly grateful for those who helped nurture and support me through those and helped me develop as a lawyer. But I prefer always to look forward. I think I've learnt a lot in the past, and I've got a lot to be grateful for from the people who are around me. But
so you don't see point in
real
having
regrets.
You don't see any point in having regrets.
No, I think you should learn. When it goes wrong, you should learn, but not be endlessly backward looking. It's you need the resilience to move on. You need to be humble enough to learn.
The final question. If you were to rule the world in one day, what would you do or change?
Well, I would insist, first of all, that the first thing I achieved is that I not only rule the world for a day, but for forever. But also that what I did if that isn't allowed, then what I did during that day has to stay forever, and that is a brilliant education available for all.
Judith, thank you very much.
That's all my pleasure.